This LOS is calculate and interpret price, income, and cross-price elasticities of demand and describe factors that affect each measure. Before we jump into this LOS, we'll do a bit of an introduction. In a general sense, economics is the study of production, distribution, and consumption, and can be divided into two broad areas of study, macroeconomics and microeconomics. Macroeconomics deals with aggregate economic quantities, such as national output and national income. Macroeconomics has its roots in microeconomics, which deals with markets and decision-making of individual economic units, including consumers and businesses. Microeconomics is a logical starting point for the study of economics. The theory of the consumer is the study of consumption, the demand for goods and services, by utility maximizing individuals. The theory of the firm is the study of supply of goods and services by profit maximizing firms. Conceptually, profit is the difference between revenue and costs. Revenue is a function of the selling price and quantity sold, which are determined by the demand and supply behavior in the markets into which the firm sells or provides its goods and services. Costs are a function of the demand and supply interactions in resource markets, such as markets for labor and physical inputs. Demand analysis, the consumer. The demand concepts. The demand function is given here, and we've got a formula. Let's just look at what each variable is reflecting. So QDX is the quantity demanded of good X, PX is the price of the good X, I is the consumer's income, PY is the price of good Y. So you can see that the quantity demanded for X is going to be a function of the price of X, your income, and the price of a good Y, okay? So in the equation form, the intercept is the quantity demand of X is the intercept minus the sensitivity to its own price times the price of X, plus the income sensitivity times income, minus the sensitivity to the price of good Y times the price of Y. So the demand curve depicts the quantity demanded for each price, okay? The law of demand, there's an inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. So continuing with the demand analysis and looking at the consumer, now we're going to look at own price elasticity of demand. But before we get into it, I just want to show you that's the demand curve. We know it's downward sloping. That's the quantity of X demanded, and that's the price. So as we increase the price, of course, we're going to decrease the quantity demanded, okay? So just make that clear from the previous slide. If you're studying economics for the first time, demand curve is downward sloping. So own price elasticity is the sensitivity of the quantity demanded of a good to changes in the price of a good. So for example, for good X, the quantity demanded X equals A minus B times PX, okay? You can see that's the slope of a line. If it's an upward sloping line, we know it's, just going back to this, the y-axis and the x-axis, y equals A plus BX, okay? So we should be maybe familiar with that if we know the equation for the slope of the line. So this is not too difficult because we're looking at demand curve, it's downward sloping, so the quantity is A minus BX, and B is always the slope of the line. So it's quantity demanded A minus B times PX, the price of X. So as we increase the price, we're going to decrease the quantity demanded, and B is a slope. We have here the slope of the curve. It's right here, okay? So again, just let's look through this. QDX is the quantity of good demanded, PX is the price, A is the intercept, B is the slope. Because the slope depends on the unit measure of Q, it is preferred to use the own price elasticity of demand. So we can see here it's the percentage change in the quantity of good demanded divided by the percentage change in the price of the good, okay? So we can see here the percentage change in the quantity demanded divided by the percentage change in the price of the good, and that's the slope coefficient. So not too difficult. Again, it's just dealing with the slope of a line, but it's downward sloping. Demand analysis, the consumer. Now we're going to look at some demand concepts. Elasticity of demand is a measure of how sensitive quantity demanded is to changes in various variables. Own price elasticity of demand is the ratio of the percentage change in quantity demanded to the percentage change in a good or service's own price. We just saw that on the previous slide. Own price elasticity of demand, percentage change in quantity divided by the percentage change in price. If own price elasticity of demand is greater than 1 in absolute terms, demand is elastic, and a decline in price will result in higher total expenditure on that good. If own price elasticity of demand is less than 1 in absolute terms, demand is inelastic, and a decline in price will result in a lower total expenditure on that good. If own price elasticity of demand is equal to -1, demand is unit or unitary, elastic, and total expenditure on that good is independent of price. Own price elasticity of demand will almost always be negative, okay? So you can see if it's negative, less than 1, demand is inelastic, and a decline in price will result in a lower expenditure on that good. Okay, here's a little chart or a graphic, just to remind you. And these are, when I'm making my own flashcards for memory, this is kind of an example of what I would do to try to memorize all this stuff. So here on the first column, if the elasticity coefficient, you can see, is greater than 1, equals -1, is less than 1, equals 0, or it's infinite, then the demand, if it's greater than 1, it's elastic. If it equals -1, it's unit elastic. If it's less than 1, it's inelastic. If it equals 0, it's perfectly inelastic. And if it's infinity, it's perfectly elastic. And what here, this is the important point, is what is the interpretation, because that's what a multiple choice question would be based on. Most likely, least likely, okay? So if the elasticity coefficient is greater than 1, demand is elastic. Percentage change in price results in a larger percentage change in quantity demanded. So that's the key words that I would key in on: elastic, larger. Okay, if it equals -1, unit elastic, then a percentage change in price results in a similar percentage change in quantity demanded. Okay, so it's change in price, similar change in quantity demanded. If it's inelastic, then a percentage change in price results in a smaller percentage change in quantity demanded. And that might be something that is a consumer staple, that the price can change. It can go up a little bit, but you're going to have a smaller change in the quantity demanded. Okay, and if it equals 0, perfectly inelastic, percentage change in price does not affect quantity demanded. And if it's perfectly elastic, a percentage change in price results in 0 quantity demanded. So that's kind of a special case. Okay, now we're going to look at 4 key points here when we're looking at demand analysis in the consumer. One is the degree of substitutability. The greater the degree of substitutability, the greater the elasticity. So remember, the percentage change in price, there's going to be a greater change in the percentage change of the quantity demanded. Okay, and what would an example be? Coke and Pepsi. Price of Coke went up. Well, I'm going to start to buy Pepsi because I can substitute Coke with Pepsi. Okay. Number 2 is the portion of the budget spent on the good. The greater the portion, the greater the elasticity. Number 3 is time allowed to respond to change in price. The longer the time allowed, the greater the elasticity. And finally, number 4 is the extent to which the good is deemed necessary. The greater the extent to which the good is deemed necessary, the more inelastic is its demand. And that's what we said, is that if it's necessary and it can't be substituted, well, an increase of price is going to result in a lesser percentage change in the quantity demanded. Now we're going to move on to income elasticity of demand. And income elasticity of demand is the change in the quantity demanded of a good in response to a change in income. So the income elasticity of demand, you can see percentage change in quantity of good demanded divided by the percentage change in income. An income elastic good is a good that has positive income elasticity. As income increases, demand for the good increases, also known as a normal good. So my income's gone up and I'm going to buy more of this good, so it's income elastic. An inferior good is one that has a negative income elasticity. The demand for the good falls as income rises. My income rises, now I have maybe different substitutes. I'm going to buy less of this good, so it's called an inferior good. Income and elasticity of demand is the ratio of the percentage change in quantity demanded to the percentage change in consumer income. So we saw that in the previous slide. Demand is negatively sloped because of either substitution effect or the income effect. The substitution effect is the phenomenon in which, as the goods price falls, more of this good is substituted for other, more expensive goods. The income effect of the phenomenon in which, as the good price falls, real income rises. If this good is normal, more of it will be purchased. Now we're going to look at cross-price elasticity of demand. Cross-price elasticity of demand is the ratio of the percentage change in quantity demanded of one good to the percentage change in the price of a related good. If cross-price elasticity between two goods is positive, they are substitutes. And if cross-price elasticity between two goods is negative, then they are complements. Carrying on with the cross-price elasticity of demand, the price of another good might also have an impact on the demand for a good. That elasticity is the cross-price elasticity of demand. So we can see here we've got the formula for that. The percentage change in the quantity demanded of X may be influenced by the percentage change in the price of Y, okay? So consider the case of the sensitivity of the demand for tires in response to the price of gas per gallon. So tires equals 95 million minus 3.2 times the price per gallon of gas. There is negative cross-elasticity between tires and gas, therefore gas and tires are complements. So how does that work? Just put it in terms of common sense. If the price of gas goes down, people travel more. They're taking summer holidays. When they're traveling more, they need to replace their tires. So this is an example of a cross-price elasticity of demand, where if the price of gas goes down, then the number of tires is going to increase. So if the price per gallon increases by $1, then the number of tires is going to decline by 3.2 million. Okay, recall that the LOS is calculate and interpret price, income, and cross-price elasticities of demand and describe factors that affect each measure. So we've gone through the theory, now we got to get into the practice and we got to do the calculation. So here's a practice question. The market demand function for four-year private universities is given by the equation QD PR equals 84 minus 3.1 PR plus 0.8 I plus 0.9 P to the PU. Okay, so let's look at what these factors are. QDPR is the number of applicants to private universities per year in thousands. PPR is the average price of private universities in thousands of US dollars. I is the household monthly income in thousands of US dollars. And PPU is the average price of public government-supported universities in thousands of US dollars. Assume that P to the PR is equal to 38, I is equal to 100, and PPU is equal to 18, then the price elasticity of demand for private universities is closest to A, negative 3.1, B, negative 1.9, or C, 0.6. Okay, this is an interesting question. The first time you go through it, you just have to practice these. It takes a little bit of practice because it's a two-step, typical of the CFA, it's a two-step problem. And the correct answer is B, but let's see how we solve that, okay? So the first thing that you need to know, when you see here the quantity demanded for PR divided by the price, the change in price of PR equals negative 3.1. That's the coefficient in front of its price, okay? So that's a negative coefficient. And so you need to know that and recognize that. And by the way, this is just a multi-factor model, by the way. And these are given the intercepts and the coefficients. So then the first thing that you need to do is you need to solve for the quantity demanded of PR. And that's really easy. So here I just used a bit of color coding, the 38, the 100, the 18. They're giving you those numbers. You just have to plug it in and solve for the quantity demanded of PR, okay? And you're going to, when you do that, you're going to get 62.4, okay? 84 minus 3.1 times 38 plus 0.8 times 100 plus 0.9 times 18 equals 62.4. So that's step number one. But then step number two, what you need to do at price of 38, because we're giving you here the price of 38, you need to now take that negative coefficient of negative 3.1 and multiply it by 38 over the 62.4, okay? The number that you've solved. So the number that was given at 38 divided by the number that you solved, 62.4, times the negative 3.1 from the multi-factor model that they've given you, and it's going to solve to negative 1.9. So B is correct. Okay, this is the next question, and in this one we're going to look at the income elasticity of demand for private universities. So a bit of an exam tip, always look at the question first. When they're giving you a lot of data and there's a lot of information or the question looks really lengthy, jump down and ask what it's asking. So here I'm going to look very quickly. It says the income elasticity of demand for private universities is closest to A, 0.5, B, 0.8, or C, 1.3. So when I go up and start to look at the question, I already have in mind what they're looking for, okay? So you can see the market demand function, that's a multi-factor model for four-year private universities, is given by the equation. The quantity demanded to PR equals 84 minus 3.1 price of PR plus 0.8 I plus 0.9 P to the PU. So we can see that this is the same data that was given to us. Quantity demanded PR is the number of applicants to private universities per year in thousands. P to the PR is the average price of private universities in thousands of US dollars. I is the household monthly income in thousands of USD. P to the PU is the average price of public government-supported universities in thousands of US. Assume that PR is equal to 38, I is equal to 100, and PU is equal to 18. The income elasticity demand is closest to what? A, B, or C? Okay, I think you're going to agree that these questions get easier as we do more of them, and because in this case we're doing the same steps, we're just changing a couple of the variables, okay? So in this case, they're looking for the income elasticity. So when they're looking at the income elasticity, we're looking up here at this variable in the multi-factor model, okay? So step one is the same. We're going to solve for the quantity demanded of the private universities, and we need to, they've given us a multi-factor model, and they've given us the assumptions, okay? And so that's why I highlighted those in red, blue, and green, so you can follow your eyes down. And you just have to solve the equation for the quantity demanded of the private universities. That's easy. It's just 84 minus 3.1 times the 38, which they gave us, plus 0.8 times the 100, plus 0.9 times the 18. So that gives us the 62.4, okay? That's the exact same as the previous question. Then what you need to do, because it's asking for the income elasticity of demand, then you've got to look up here. This is the factor for the income elasticity. It's 0.8 times I. So you're going to take the 0.8 and then multiply by the I that has been given to you, 100, divided by the what you just calculated, the quantity demanded for the private universities of 62.4, okay? So it's 100, which is given to you, divided by the 62.4, which you've calculated, and then it's just going to be multiplied by the 0.8, which is the sensitivity to the factor, okay? And you're going to get the answer is 1.3, so the correct answer is C, okay? So going back to the previous question, step one was exactly the same. We've got the 62.4, but we're looking for the price elasticity. So we were taking 38 divided by the 62.4, okay? Okay, one last practice question to finish this LOS. And you can see it's giving us the same data again. So it's the market demand function for four-year private universities is given by the equation. And so, we've done two practice questions on that. I don't need to read it again. What are they asking for this time? They're asking for the cross-price elasticity of demand for private universities with respect to the price of public universities. And is it closest to 0.3 for A, B 3.1, or C 3.9? Okay, at this point, I think you're going to say, well, I think I got it because it's the third time. And we're going to go through the same steps. So step one, we're going to solve for the quantity demanded of the private universities given our assumptions, the 38, the 100, and the 18, okay? So we've got the sensitivity of the factors, and then they give us the, they give us the data. So we're going to solve step one, and just plugging that in, 84 minus 3.1 times 38 plus 0.8 times 100 plus 0.9 times 18, we get our 62.4. So that's been the same. So that's step 1. What do we do for step 2? Aha! Now we're looking at the cross-price elasticity. So remember we started with price, so we used the 3.1. The second question we're looking at income elasticity, so we used the 0.8. Now we're looking at cross-price, and it's with regards to the price of the public university, so we're using the 0.9. So it's going to be 0.9 times what? You just have to remember my numerator is the number that they're giving us, the 18 divided by the number that we calculated, the 62.4, okay? So 18 divided by 62.4 times 0.9 equals 0.3. And that's the last slide for this LOS. Thank you.